Present.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Present.
Mr. Lewis?
Present.
Okay, next item, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you call?
No, I have no cards for public
No comments?
comments this
Okay.
evening.
Next item, approval of the minutes from the prior meeting, September 23rd. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
The moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Cropper, call the roll, please.
Mr. Waldman?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Banches?
Yes. Next item, donations. Mrs. Cropper.
We have no donations this evening.
Okay.
Next item of business for the Treasurer's Office would be the financial statements, bills paid list, and investments for the month and the fiscal year to date ended August 31st. Respectfully, I draw your attention to the first page of your financial statements, which show all funds, unencumbered balance of just under $25.4 million. The next two pages present the detail for your general fund. And as you can see, during the last month, in August, the district received the final settlement on the fall real estate taxes. That's the $1.2 million in the general fund. All told, revenues were $3.7 million. Expenses during the month were a little over $5 million, and as we've presented before, you know that you can pretty much take our annual expenses and divide them by 12. They're that stable and reliable. So as you can see, expenses were as expected for the month, and it is a high cash flow month as expected with unencumbered balance of $13.5 million. The final page in your financial statements there just shows the general fund expenditures by function rather than by expense item. That said, I respectfully request that you acknowledge and accept the general fund statements for the month and the fiscal year to date ended August 31st, 2014.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Cropper, please take the roll.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Waldman?
Yes.
Mr. Banches?
Yes. Anything else under Treasurer's report?
Oh, very, very definitely tonight. We have a
Okay.
very important motion. These are our final appropriations for the 2015 school year. It is state law that they be passed by October every year. So that said, I do have a PowerPoint. I'd like to go over them in detail. You see the listing there in board docs. But I do have a presentation and would like to explain them a little bit more, as well as tell you what the changes are from last year. This is the time of year at this last September meeting before we pass our new appropriations that we take a good look back at the majority of our expenditures in the 2014. And of course, we use those to trim forward and to look at what past trends have been over the last couple of years and the changes that we know that are going to go into effect for this school year to set our appropriations for fiscal year 15. That said, our appropriations total just under $84 million, all funds. Just so you know, all appropriations are within our amended certificate of estimated resources, which has been issued by the county auditor as required by law. The official certificate of estimated resources has the county auditor certifying what our resources, both beginning balances plus expected revenues, will be for the year. And that's one of the documents that the auditor looks at and checks to make sure that we don't over appropriate. So all appropriations are within that amended certificate. As well, I know that it is a board directive and something that the board looks at. The general fund appropriations are balanced this year. That means that our appropriations that we're asking for tonight do not exceed the revenues that we expect to see, the projected revenues for this year. So we will not be going into our cash balance, and as such would expect to be able to add to our reserves at the end of this year in our general fund. That said, as you know, the general fund, I want you to be able to take the list of funds that you see every month on your one-page financial report, as well as the appropriation listing that in board docs, to see where that $84 million is actually distributed. And you can see the largest part of it by far is in the general fund with 77%. The next largest for our fiscal year coming up is in our permanent improvement fund, a little bit over 8% of that. And then the grants would be the next highest that we appropriate to, debt service, food service, and then our student fees and activities. So being the anal accountant in me, I know that this is not a good chart, but this is one that I needed to put up there so you could see the crosswalk exactly from the funds and see the numbers, the fund names and fund numbers, exactly how they make up the chart, the pie chart that you just saw. That said, the first thing I'd like to step back and look at in detail is the makeup of the general fund and how much we spend in each expense areas during a normal year in the general fund. Of course, salaries and benefits make up about 70%. As far as an average from Ohio schools, that's actually a little low. That's really due to the fact that we contract out busing. The average salaries and benefits percentage in your typical school would be closer to 80%. But because we do contract out a large amount of services through our transportation, that takes that transportation services out of salaries and benefits and puts it in contractual service. So while our salaries and benefits percentage of budget is a little lower than a typical school, our contractual services are going to be a little bit higher than your typical school because of those transportation expenses in there. We spend very little on materials and supplies. It's a very small part of our general fund budget. Other, which are going to be administrative fees and things that we'll discuss as we go through this in detail, is 2% of our budget. So starting out, taking a look at salaries, you can see the actual past couple of years, what we've spent in salaries, and the actual FTE that represents, and what we project spending for fiscal year 2015. As you can see, we've had, over the past couple of years, we've had 3% decrease in fiscal year 13, and almost a 7% decrease from fiscal year 14 over fiscal year 13. Going forward, we do project a less than 3% increase in our salary line. And to take a look at the reasons and what necessitates the need for that little bit of decrease. First of all, how did we come up with that decrease? We have current salaries. All of our contracts are in the payroll system now. So we're able to have a pretty good handle on exactly what that 49% of our budget is. So what caused that increase? Well, we've added 6 teachers due to bringing specials light back. Every year, and this may change through the year coming up, we look at where we can utilize grant funds, and we were able to move some positions from being general fund funded into grant funds for fiscal year 14, which is part of the reason that we had almost a 7% decrease there. Those grant funds, we had to move some of them back this year because the grant funds weren't available for that. We did have some vacant positions, most notably in our curriculum department, that went unfilled for a good half of the year last year. So we have We do have people in those places now. And so we needed to add a little bit to the salaries for that. The other thing, the school day, we lengthened the school day in order to take care of the specials that were going to be put into the school day. That necessitated a change in hours for our paraprofessionals at the elementary level. They went from 14 and a half hours a week to 19 and a half hours a week. So they went from being a 0.4 FTE to being a 0.6 FTE, and that added 10 FTEs. So while it's a fairly lower paid position, it did add almost 10 FTEs to that. The specials light added 6 FTEs. Of course, what went into the salaries were the trends of no increase on the base, no experience steps, and we did put in a minimal increase for education steps on that. Typically, that runs us around $100,000 a year. The education changes were due to the personnel department on the 15th. That didn't give me time to get the actual amount in for fiscal year 15. Looking ahead to what we spent in benefits over the past year, by far the largest amount that we spend in benefits is, of course, our health insurance. For fiscal year 14, the board's share of the health insurance premium was $7.3 million. Retirement was close behind at $5 million. One of the things that I'd like to point out on there is you see in red, you see a workers' comp rebate. That is the first time in 10 years that the Bureau of Workers' Comp issued a rebate to the employers who had been paying for workers' comp. It's not something that had happened in the past years. And typically, it wouldn't be something that you'd expect again for quite some time. However, luckily, they just came out, and we are going to get another one this year.
Nice.
Yeah. Looking forward to benefits from fiscal year 14 to 13. Fiscal year 14 was actually almost 6% less. We spent 6% less in fiscal year 14 than we did in 13. Retirement, of course, is a percentage off of salaries, so retirement decreased. We were lucky during the fiscal year 14 that we received less than a 1% increase in our health insurance. Our health insurance rates go up January 1st of every calendar year, so we have 6 months of an increase usually. We just had a slight increase in our dental insurance. Dental insurance in the district is self-insured. So that will change, and we look at trends to estimate that forward. And in fiscal year 14, we had no unemployment cost during the year, and that was compared to fiscal year 13, where we were still paying from the large cuts we'd had a couple years previously. Looking forward to what we forecast for fiscal year 15, we have increased the benefits by 2.7%. That's based upon the increases that we have in salary. We know that retirement and all the benefits are going to follow both the FTEs and any increases in salary. While we're still looking at what our health insurance premiums will be on January 1, we do have the data, and we do know that we are going to get a slight decrease in health insurance. So good news in health insurance 2 years in a row. No changes in our dental and life insurance premiums. And for the second time in a decade, we will be getting a workers' comp rebate, and ours is estimated by the Bureau of Workers' Comp to be around $153,000. What we spend in contractual services. And of course, this is a large percentage of our budget. We spend close to 27% in contractual services, and I won't read down through the entire list there for you, but what I want to point out is our transportation contract is one of the largest things there. I have the tuitions, and the tuitions that I have highlighted there, I want to make note of the fact that while these are listed as an expenditure, All these expenditures are memo expenditures. This is money that's taken out of our state foundation payments before we even get it. School districts are required to record their school foundation payments at gross. So that would be like putting your paycheck in your checkbook at gross instead of at net. So we're asked to appropriate something we don't have the choice to spend somewhere else. The other thing that is a large amount of our contract services are special ed contracts. Those are for the ancillary services within special ed, your physical therapy, your occupational therapy, nursing services, things such as that. Utilities, another big item in there, $1.3 million. One of the things, too, that I think is a one-time rebate that I want to point out in the contractual services is the Medicaid reimbursement. We typically receive anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000 in Medicaid reimbursement annually. However, during 2014, we had the settlement on a state claim in some large, for some years, going from fiscal year 09 through fiscal year 11. We had been in settlement talks with the state for a larger Medicaid reimbursement, and that portion was $473,000, so that was a one-time reimbursement. So what happened last year in our contractual services? We did see an 8%, so last year in fiscal year 14, actual contractual services increased by 8% over what they were in fiscal year 13. The primary reasons for those is that we saw a 2% increase in our base transportation contract rate. The challenges in the disabilities of our special ed kids continue to increase, necessitating an increase in what we spend on our special education contracts by about 13%. We've seen a huge increase in open enrollment. We went, going back to that, you can see our open enrollment was 2.7 last year. That was 1.9 million the year before, so that was a huge increase in our open enrollment. Utilities have been holding fairly constant. 4,000 decrease, hardly worth mentioning. So, and then of course the one-time Medicaid settlement. Looking forward to fiscal year 15, what have we appropriated? We've appropriated $17.6 million. It's 27% of our total appropriations in the general fund. It's a 6% increase over fiscal year 14. We're looking at increasing our transportation services. As we talked about last year, I think we gave you the estimate of $158,000. That increase actually was only $112,000, but it was still an increase that needed to be added. 2% increase in the base contract rate. Special education contracts were trended over the increased percentage over the last 5 years, and we had to put an increase in for that. One place where we are maybe going out on a little bit of a limb, we do see our open enrollment counts leveling. Just put in a small increase for that. We've heard from the surrounding school districts that have taken in our open enrollment students that they're full. We did look at our enrollment this week compared to this time last year, and it appears to be down a little, but nothing significant, so hope we're not stepping out and should have put a little bit more there, but we really kept that somewhat constantly. And then, of course, we are not going to get the 473 Medicaid settlement this year, so we had to make sure that we covered that. The next area of the district in general fund is supplies. Again, it's a fairly small percentage of our budget. Last year we spent over only $560,000 in this amount. The largest thing we spent there, and you can take a look at it, is fuel. Fuel is separate from our transportation contracts, so that's the largest item in our general fund. During the year, we got $32,000 in the excise tax reimbursements. And the other major expenditure in there is, of course, custodial supplies. What did fiscal year 14 look like compared to the year before? Actually, it was a 14% decrease, but sometimes just looking at percentages, increases and decreases can be not exactly the way to go. What caused that 14% decrease? Actually, the timing of the fuel payments when the invoices come in. Our process for invoices is you have to have a proper purchase order. The invoice comes in, we'll send, in this case, back to the operations manager to look over that and accept it. Depending upon the timing at the end of June, it could be in one year and not in the other. So we actually, during the year of 14, had 11 fuel payments instead of 12. And the excise tax reimbursements all seem to fall within the year. Remember, our budgeting is on a cash basis, so those sort of things can throw off the trends, and we need to take a look at those when we trend forward. So actually, that accounted for 9% of the decrease overall. In the library books and materials line alone, that decreased by almost $63,000 over the past year. So, but overall, the whole supplies decreased by about 5%. Mr. Lewis, did you have a question?
Yes. We pay for the fuel for the buses
We do,
separate from the contract.
separate from the contract.
And it was only 360,000?
That's, whoops,
Okay.
I went the wrong way. Yeah, for this past year, it was 360,000. That, it was like 397 for the 2013 year, and that's what I'm saying. That only has 11 payments in there. When you budget and pay your bills and on a cash basis, sometimes the timing of those invoices can put it off. So when we're comparing what we pay one year to the next, we want to make sure that we take that into account.
So 2014 will have 13 potential.
Potentially, we could have 13, depending upon when that June payment comes in exactly. We could have 12. If it's late again, we could just have 12. If it's run a little bit earlier, we could have 13. So that's, looking at a 14, you can't really say it's a 14% decrease. It's closer to a 5% decrease for the total expense. Looking forward, given that, that's why we did give it a 13% increase for fiscal year 15, and that was due to the timing of the fuel payments. We did keep the reduction of the classroom and library supplies. We did keep that in there, hoping that if we do need to fund some of those additional items in the future, we'll look towards grant funds or maybe even look at 003 for that money. So we'll hope to keep that line item where it was. In the other category, the main things that come out of here is our property and liability insurance, the extracurricular transfer that funds the supplementals that are not covered by fees comes out of this line item. Again, what I've highlighted there, you see auditor and treasurer fees of $645,000. That, again, is not something that we ever get. It's something that we have to gross in our books. That is payment to the Claremont County Auditor for collecting and distributing our property taxes. The county ESC deduction is a fee that is taken directly out of our school foundation payment directly from the state. So those two things are memo expenditures, not money that we ever see. Going forward, or looking backward at how 14 compared to fiscal year 13, it was actually a 9% decrease, and it was mainly in the area of the county ESC deduction. We were able to move that deduction down. You have a choice as to what amount you want to send them. We chose the lower amount in fiscal year 14, $6.50 a student. Anything else we buy from Claremont County is a direct bill. Looking forward for fiscal year 15, the other category is 2% of our appropriations, just about $1.1 million, and I did give those items a 1% inflationary increase based upon past trends. So that said, all told, it does give fiscal year 15 about a 4% decrease. I'm sorry, 4% increase. Know that we have set appropriations at a level we think is sufficient to cover things. Throughout the year, we continue to look under every rock and continue to look at grants, other ways of funding things. So we do hope during the year to maybe be able to take that down a little bit. Fiscal year 15 funding is still not back to the level of fiscal year 12, and surely not back to where we have been in the past. At no point in this chart, going all the way back to fiscal year 2007, was the district's cost per pupil or spending ever at the same level as a state average. As a matter of fact, the last data that we had from the state, which was for school year 13, our district spent in fiscal year 13 28% less than typical school district in the state of Ohio. So while we're showing a little bit of an increase, and I hope that you could see the reasons back through the general fund that we did arrive at this little bit of an increase, we still are spending very conservatively as we go forward. That said, that's about, as you can see, a little over 77% of our money. Just to take a real quick look, and I won't take as much of your time with the other funds since they're a smaller bit of the budget, but I thought you might be interested in what is the other funds actually pay for. Permanent Improvement Fund, which is our 003 fund on there. During the past year, we spent about $2.7 million on technology, maintenance about 1.3. We do within 003. 003 is all funds are to be spent on capital assets. However, you can spend a small amount on salaries. You have to make sure that the people that you're paying out of that fund are involved in keeping those fixed assets in place and ready for use. So what you see there is some of our maintenance people are paid out of 003, as well as our technology. No supervisors are paid out of 003. It has to be the actual workers. You can also buy textbooks out of 003, and we do have some capital leases that the district has had in place for a long time. One was an energy conservation project, and the other was money that they borrowed to build the PACs. Continue to have lease payments outstanding on them. This was a large amount for us to spend in our technology this year. This went towards upgrading the technology infrastructure within the buildings to be able to handle the computing power, I guess as Callan would say, that we needed as we look towards having to do online testing in the future. This also funded a lot of Chromebooks at about $228 a pop as we look towards being able to use those for online testing in the future. And I'm told that we are about 2 pupils to 1 Chromebook at this point in our district. So we spent a significant investment in 2004 to upgrade our technology. Looking forward in our Permanent Improvement Fund, you see that we are spending a little bit of our cash reserves during this fiscal year. We typically get about $5.2 million. We, in this, during the year, we do have a balloon payment coming due December 1st of $2.8 million, and that will pay off one of the OASBO leases. That will leave a continuing payment of around $72,000 to $75,000 for the last OASBO lease that's outstanding. So this is a balloon payment. We do have the reserves that we've been saving for the past couple of years ready to cover this. Moving on to our debt service fund. The debt service fund collects tax revenues from voted bond issues. One was in 1995, the other was in 2008. As you can see in the older issue, there is a little under $4 million outstanding. It matures in 2019. And the 2008 debt, the $30 million that was issued, was, of course, for our 2 new elementaries, WT and Amelia. So there are a dedicated tax issue stream that funds that debt. that's due. And going forward, the almost $2.9 million that has been appropriated will pay the principal and interest on that debt, as well as about $40,000 for the county auditor fees to collect that, those revenues for us. Food service fund, last year we spent right at $2.2 million in that. The majority of that is, of course, goes to pay the people who serve the kids, as well as to buy food. The funding is generally, of course, comes from state and federal grants, as well as charges for services. State and federal grants contribute about 55% of the revenue that goes to cover these expenses, with the rest of it coming for the charges from the kids. Grant funds, these are local grants, as well as state grants, as well as federal grants. Instruction is what we do. We think the most important thing we can do with our grant funds is we push the majority of them to fund instruction, and that means being able to put a teacher in front of a kid. So you can see that we spend almost 78% of our grant funds directly in salaries and benefits, and then a large percentage also goes, 10% goes towards contractual services. Grant funds are spent pursuant to the rules of the grants. Some of the grants do say that it's for professional development only. Some say it's for improving readiness of kids. So we do make sure that grant funds are spent in accordance with what they've been told, what we've been told they must fund. Student activities and fees. As you know, this is our 200s, 300s fund. 300s is athletics. We did, in our fee collection, which we take as a reduction of an expenditure, fees that we get from the kids, we put towards this. You can see the salaries, benefits, contractual services, materials and supplies in our fees and services. So that said, that is a pretty quick synopsis of what the appropriations, the $84 million is meant to cover. I don't know if this time if you have any questions.
Any questions from the board members? Seeing none, any further comments? Mrs. Crawford?
That said, I respectfully request that you approve the appropriations as presented.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Cropper, will we call the roll, please?
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Waldman?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Banshees?
Yes.
That concludes the treasurer's agenda for tonight. Thank you for your attention to a rather lengthy agenda.
Okay, next item, superintendent's business.
Yeah, under superintendent's business tonight, we have a presentation. I wanted to share a little bit of information about where we are with our K+ and extended day programming that we started at the beginning of this school year. So I'd like to invite Laura Nazarene, our Director of Student Services, and Berta Valia, Child Focus person, to come up and give us an update on where we are with those two programs.
Thank you, Dr. Klein, Mrs. Cropper, members of the board for having us here tonight. We are super excited to share with you our K+ Extended Day Initiative. With me, my partner in crime, Berta Valia. She is the Director of Early Learning for Child Focus, and she'll talk to you a little bit about her organization.
Sure. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight. Child Focus is a nonprofit organization that has been in existence for over 35 years, providing services to the Clermont County community as well as Brown County and Hamilton County. Most of our work is around educational services and mental health services. We have had a strong partnership with the district for many, many years, going back to 1984.
Child Focus and West Clermont have started a K+ extended day program. Just to tell you a little bit more about our program, We have AM and PM options when it comes to K+. We have an extended kindergarten day providing a full day option for our parents, something that we've been working on for a really long time. We had to think outside the box to find out an economical way to provide the service for our students, and this is the option that we chose. We are using a research-based curriculum that's aligned with kindergarten standards. All of our teachers are certified and are highly qualified teachers, and we have embedded supervision and supports in the classroom. We also follow the school calendar. I happened to be in a classroom the other day. I asked the teacher if I could pull her schedule. I just wanted to kind of give you a glance of what a day in the life of an extended day kindergartner looks like. So they arrive in the classroom. This is for an AM session around 8:20. They usually go right into large group instruction. Then the teacher focuses on literacy. She's usually doing a preview review activity based on what they're learning on the classroom that day. She then moves into her math class, which she's doing a preview review. It's definitely reteaching the skills that the children are working on that day. Then they go out for a little bit of fun to outdoor recess. They experience some art, music, and gym that's implemented by the classroom teacher. And then they pack up for dismissal and usually go to our lunch. And then they go to their day in kindergarten with our teachers.
The same is repeated for students that participate in the afternoon kindergarten plus. So basically the daily schedule is very similar in both options. The before and after school program, it operates from 7 in the morning until 6 p.m. in the afternoon. So basically parents have the opportunity to drop off their child as early as 7 o'clock. Students stay with the program assistants that are running that program until the start of their school day, and then have the ability to come back to the after-school program once they're dismissed from their regular school. We try to build in a lot of flexibility in this before and after-school program to give parents the option to either participate in both before and after, or only one of the options depending on their needs. They also have the option to enroll for 4 days or 5 days. And just like the K+ program, we follow the school calendar. Kind of mentioned this a little bit already. You can see kind of the hours depending on the early school or the late schools. The schedule varies a little, but the program activities that are part of the before and after school program are very similar. We provide tutoring assistance to the students, help with the homework. We also try to engage the young students in social skills activities and team building kind of projects. And obviously, some outdoor play and some recreational activities. The children are also offered a snack while they're with us. The staffing structure, we designated a coordinator, or we hired a coordinator to oversee the program, as well as to provide professional development and support to the staff. So Katie Texera is the program coordinator for both K+ and Extended Day. We have 3 kindergarten certified teachers that are running the K+ program, and each one of them has 2 locations that she works at, and you can see the breakdown on the screen. So Sarah works both at Amelia Elementary and Merwin. Angela is with the kids at Clough Pike and WT, and Jamie is with the Willowville students in Summerside. We have a program assistant that is not assigned to any specific location, that is able to provide support at all the locations, at the various locations as needed. And then we have the program assistants, 10 terrific young women that are operating or being part of the before and after school program. When we were working together to develop these 2 new programs, our goals, both from West Claremont and Child Focus perspective, was, as Laura mentioned, to provide a full day option for families and for kids. We also wanted to extend the learning opportunities of the students, specifically the kindergarten students, but as well provide some supports for the older kids that may be involved in the before and after school program. And we very much wanted to be part of the school community and the school building, and I think we're on the road to reach those goals. We have 260 students that are participating in the program, so that's the unduplicated count. And you can see on the screen the detail for each location per program. We have several students that are participating in both the after-school program or extended day and K+, so that's why the numbers are a little bit higher. We have a presence at every one of the elementary school buildings except Holly Hill. Unfortunately, when we were promoting the program and assessing the interest, we only had 2 families that expressed from Holly Hill that expressed an interest. So we were able to find some other alternatives for them and decided that maybe this year having the program at Holly Hill was not doable, but we're very excited with the numbers, and this is as of the middle of December. We continue to accept applications, and we have some families that are, continuing to express an interest. Our capacity is 18 for K+, and for the extended day program, depending on the location, we can take either 18 or 36. We're very close to, at most of the locations, very close to our numbers. Okay. Because Child Focus is a nonprofit organization and we're also a United Way agency, we were able to provide some scholarships to a few students. That was important to us to make this option available to people that maybe would not be able to pay for it. So the decision was to award the scholarships based on financial and academic needs. And we put on the screen just an example of the sliding fee structure that we use to determine the scholarship. Some families are eligible for 100%, and other families, it's more of a 35-65 breakdown. And again, it's all based on income. But I'm very pleased to say that we have, if we go to the next slide, we have awarded 16 scholarships, making an investment of over $39,000 once the year is over. I wish we had more funding from United Way, and actually we're meeting with our point person from United Way tomorrow to kind of look to see if there's opportunities for additional funding, so we can make this available to more students. But here's the breakdown of the scholarships as well for you.
So listening to our parents, talking to administrators, talking to families, we're looking at next steps. We want to continue quality program. We're going to conduct a satisfaction survey just to see what the need is, concerns are, and how we can improve the program. We'll investigate funding opportunities, like meeting with United Way tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get some money there, and we'll evaluate a parent interest for summer programming. We've had several parents talk to us about continuing the program, that they're that happy with the program to make it a year-round program. So we'll investigate that.
And in closing, we're very happy, to see where the program is and where it's going. And I cannot underscore that this was only possible because of support of many key people. And I want to thank the leadership from the district for providing, the support and the guidance to make this program happen, all the way from Superintendent Dr. Klein and many others within the district, and all of you board members as well. And we also had terrific people within the buildings that were key, from the principals to the custodians. The custodians were remarkable as we were setting up the classrooms and helping, put the classrooms together and getting them licensed. The health aides, and obviously both the K+ teachers and the West Claremont school teachers. So thank you very much for your support and the opportunity tonight to speak to you about it.
Do you have any questions?
I think the capacity of a classroom for K+ is 18, yet I see Merwin has 21.
Thank you. Yes, you picked that up quickly. We have 2 teachers there that are working at Merwin. Just because the demand, Merwin, we had a lot of interest in both programs. And we were able to hire, we have a teacher with an assistant that's working in that classroom. Thank you for pointing that out.
What's the cost to the parents or per student on these various programs?
Yeah, the K Plus program is $75 a week for 5 days a week. And the extended day program depends on the option that a parent chooses, 5 days or 4 days. Before and after for 5 days is $55 a week, and 4 days is $48 a week. Very reasonable. We had, many parents that have commented how this has been, has saved a lifesaver, a reduction in the cost of daycare for them. Very convenient as well, but by being at the elementary school building and the homeschool, the feedback has been, terrific. We definitely want to, like Laura mentioned, we want to do a formal survey to obtain more feedback. But informally, the comments have been very positive. So 55 for before and after, and 75 for K plus per week.
So where does the funding come from besides United Way?
It's parents. It's a fee-based program.
Tuition-based.
Tuition-based program.
Yeah, Child Focus is not making a lot of money on this. We're barely covering our cost.
And basically, it was a meet the need because we have a lot of parents that are unable to work a full-time position because of our limited busing service. They have no way of getting their children home, so having the extended care in the afternoon or in the morning helps them out, and $55 spent allows them to earn probably a lot more than that.
$0 come from West Claremont.
But it hurts some of the businesses that were already established that were doing the same thing.
Well, interestingly enough, and we've had some additional information about that, I know of one center that is market-driven, and we had one center that realized what we were doing, and they reduced their fees significantly to be competitive with what we're doing. And that was really one of the reasons, or the major reason why we wanted to go with Child Focus, being a nonprofit. They can keep the costs much more manageable for folks and make it affordable for our parents who, in many cases, are struggling just to make ends meet.
Plus, we already had a business relationship with them because
did.
they provided you provide a lot of services for us
Yes.
already. So it made sense to just continue with them.
And I would just add in closing, this really has been a great example of a positive shared services model where we're working together with another agency to make great things happen for our kids. And providing them that support due to our lack of transportation has really been a lifesaver for a lot of our families. And I do want to thank Berta and Laura after I had an idea and I handed it off to them, and they did a tremendous job running the ball down the field and getting a program up and running. And I think we can see what was 260, somewhere in that neighborhood, different kids that are being served in just the first year. I think that's a testament to how they've been able to organize it and make things work in a relatively quick time frame. So thank you very much for your hard work and commitment to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
Yep, we have just a couple of business items we need to work our way through this evening. Tonight I have 2 overnight field trip requests. The first was by West Claremont by request. They are our show choir group that's centered out of Glen Estee High School. They traditionally go away for a camp to learn show items and do some bonding activities, etc. That's scheduled for February. The second request is yet another 5th grade field trip request. I told you that we were probably going to get 1 or 2 of these every meeting for a while. This is for Withamsville, Tabasco, 5th graders to go to Camp Campbell Guard, as I've presented in the past. Respectfully request that the board approve both of those overnight field trips as presented.
Do we hear a motion to that effect? So moved. Do we hear a second? Second. Any discussion?
I thought it was interesting that WT is asking for their 5th grade camp to be only 2 days, when most of our elementaries do a 3rd day. Why have they shortened it? It just
I'd have to
compacts
ask that. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to ask that question specifically. I can follow up on that and let you know.
I mean, I'd like to know if it's due to cost, or is it that they're more efficient at getting the curriculum into 2 days, which would be what we want the other
Yeah,
buildings to do.
well, I think the curriculum delivery is a lot of that's driven by the staff at the camp, but there may be some components that they're not doing that other buildings are, but I'll check that and do the comparison and let you know.
We'd like to deliver a consistent
Absolutely.
camp experience.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
No.
Seeing none, Mrs. Crapper, call the roll.
Mr. Waldman,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Banches,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Yes.
Next order of business, I have in lieu of transportation request from Mr. Dyer. As you know, bus routes can be very expensive, and we do have some students who are attending schools from our community that we are required to provide transportation for. To run a separate bus route for that would be cost prohibitive. Some of those are just because it's a single kid at a school or maybe a family that's attending that particular school. We do have a few that are medically, or medical is the reason for that. We do enter in with the board's approval. We do enter into an in lieu of transportation agreement with those parents where we will pay $250 for them to transport their children as opposed to us putting a route in place to do that ourselves. So I would respectfully request that the board approve the in lieu of transportation requests as presented.
Do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Crapper, call the roll, please.
Mr. Waldman,
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman, Mrs. Brinkman.
Somebody move in there.
Sorry about that.
Got replaced. Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Banches.
Yes.
Next order of business is, try to recover here. Next order of business is a resolution for the Ohio Schools Facilities Commission. This authorizes the district to enter into master planning for the district. As you might remember, earlier this year, and some actually in 2013, we had OSFC down to go through and look at all of our buildings, look at the conditions, look at the things that would need to be repaired. That information we've had and I've shared with the board in the past. In addition to that, they did staffing and enrollment projections so that we have an idea of what our enrollment's going to look like as we look into the future. By passing this resolution, we're agreeing to have the Ohio School Facilities Commission come down and take the next step in this process, which is to sit down and pull all that information together and then come back to the board to make recommendations as far as renovations and different things that we would do with our facilities over the course of the next several years, like 5 to 10 years. So with that being said, I'd respectfully request that the board approve the resolution authorizing the school district to begin the active master planning process with the OSFC.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
And we can accept or reject everything.
Yes, this allows us to enter into that master planning process, and before anything would be done, we will have to accept some kind of a master plan or reject that, and we'll have to take a vote when we get to the springtime around whether we proceed from there. So it's there are plenty of opportunities. This just authorizes us to start engaging with them to complete the master planning process.
And there's a lot to do with this.
Oh, there's a ton of stuff to do with this, absolutely. A lot of things to take into consideration. We'll also sit down with community and have some open forums and get feedback from them. There is a lot of work that's involved with this, and as I said before, we want to try to do the bulk of that over the course of this fall so that we'll be ready after the start of the new year to make some decisions about where we're headed.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Crapper, call the roll, please.
Mr. Waldman,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Banches,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Back on track. And last but not least, I have a personnel agenda for this evening. We have several retirements and resignations that are listed in your agenda, as well as hiring of a variety of folks, including supplemental contracts, hiring an interim elementary principal, a child care leave of absence, of course, our school volunteers, which we appreciate their time and efforts on behalf of our students. We have some substitute personnel for non-certified staff and some stipends that are for curriculum work that's taking place over the course of the next month or so. With that being said, I'd like to respectfully request that the board approve the personnel agenda as presented.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to comment, I do this regularly, that I appreciate the teachers that know that they're going to retire this
Yes.
year, that they give us ample notice and stay through the school year to ensure the consistency for the kids. I appreciate that beyond what I can express.
I understand that, and unfortunately, we'll still have some that may go mid-year. The changes to the law pertaining to teacher evaluation, there's incentive for teachers to at least let us know what their plans are by December 1st. If they do that, then we stop the evaluation process for them as far as OTES is concerned. So we are going to start seeing, I think, some folks let us know about their intent to retire earlier than what we normally have in the past.
Don't we potentially see that pace picking up in the next couple of years as well with the changes in?
I think this is the last year, I think.
Actually, I'm anticipating this will be a larger than normal year. The STRS, the state retirement system, changes the guidelines, rules, game, however you want to phrase it, at the end of the school year. So I think we'll see more retirements than we normally do in a regular year as a result of that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Cropper, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Waldman,
Yes.
Mr. Banches.
Yes.
And just under superintendent's comments real quick, I want to remind the board that this Friday is a professional development day for our staff. Our students are not in session. Staff will be working on a variety of topics, including curriculum development, working on instructional strategies for the classroom. We are going to begin the process of looking at new courses for our secondary students, particularly at the high school level. And that process, once it gets started this Friday, will involve student input on what courses they have an interest in. I think it's real important at the secondary level that we ask the kids what their interests are as we create some of those new courses. We're also starting work on our 2015-16 school calendar. The new law that was passed last year requires us to have a public hearing regarding that, and we're working on dates for that public hearing to take place. So I'll have more information for you around that here shortly. And I wanted to let you know as well that we have been working on pulling together a business advisory group. I've been working with Matt Van Zant from the Chamber and Kevin Maloff, who's heavily involved in the work readiness program, to pull business leaders together so that we can tap into their expertise as we design programming and move the district forward. So I'm excited about all that. And the last thing I want to mention is I hope everybody joins me in wishing Mrs. Brinkman a happy birthday today. Sorry, we even loaded up. We had an executive session on top of a regular board meeting, so I apologize for that.
That's right.
But we do want to make sure that you have a happy day.
Yes.
That's the end of my report for tonight.
Thank you.
I have no cards for the
No
second.
cards for the next part? Okay. Under board business, we need to appoint an OSBA legislative delegate to the Capitol Conference. Do I hear a nominee?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Waldman.
So presidential appointment, we won't need a
We won't need
vote.
to vote.
Okay.
Okay. I hope you'll endorse him.
We have a second of the nomination. I'll second that. Mr. Waldman, I
No,
guess
we
you're
don't need a
appointed,
vote. It's presidential appointment, and tonight you're the president, so
since you'll be there anyway.
congratulations,
Just-
Mr. Waldman.
Thanks. Just kind of for the rest of the board as an FYI, there is a platform of official business. If you do not have that information, it would probably be worthwhile to take a look at it. And if you have things that you have concerns about, you want me to bring to that meeting, I'd be happy to do so.
Steve,
Huh?
I said, they won't listen to you. They're all behind Common Core, so until they give up that ghost, I have no use for them.
Well, if there is consensus, I'm happy to move forward with that discussion.
About
So-
Common Core?
No,
Oh.
with what the platform issues are.
Perfect.
The information was contained in an email from OSBA that I believe went to all board members. If you can't find yours, just send me a quick email and I'll make sure you get
Okay.
the link.
Any other comments from the board? Hearing none? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Do we have to call roll on that?
Yes, yes.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Waldman?
Yes.
Mr. Banches?
Yes. Meeting's adjourned.